All right, good evening. We're just a couple of minutes away from starting the meeting. I'd like to invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then Mike Lawson will bring the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this day and beautiful weather you've given us. I pray and thank you for this council and the people here in attendance that have an interest in a city that's growing in such a positive direction, and we have you to thank for that, Lord. I pray that you'll be with Rose and her family as they've lost a loved one this week, and just have your hand on them. The next few days will be difficult, and just help them get through it, Lord. Thank you for the blessings that you give us. We know they come without conditions, and again, we just thank you, Lord, and amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike.
Amen.
All right, let me again welcome you to this regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, April 24th, 2018. We do have large print agendas over here, if that would be helpful to anyone. That said, I'm going to ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Rick Culver.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton.
Here.
Colby Fulford.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rick Evans.
Here.
Jim Reed. Kathy Jaycox. Here. Ernest Kate. Here.
All right. We're at item 4 on the agenda, if you're following along, and this is the part of the meeting that the council sets aside each meeting for comments from our citizens. If we have any one in the room that would like to address the council, we just ask that you come, state your name and address. Please keep your comments brief and realize that the council won't be taking action on anything you have to say tonight. So we'd welcome anyone that would like to speak to the council concerning an item that is not on tonight's agenda.
Hi, Council. My name is Jeff Miller. I'm at 3541 Torrey Street in Springdale, and I wanted to introduce myself to you tonight. I'm running for school board, Zone 2 in Springdale. That's the northwest quadrant of Springdale. It's Jeff Williams' position, and he's decided to step down. And I have several friends on the board and was encouraged to run. I'm not running with an agenda. I have learned a lot about the school board over the last 6 months. I've been going to the school board meetings and getting to know the people on the board, as well as some of the administrators and teachers who are really involved in our school district. And you may have seen my signs around. My full name is Jefferson Miller, and I do have a background in education. I am a professor at the University of Arkansas in agricultural education. My students call me Dr. Miller, but you guys can call me Jeff. I grew up in a family of educators. Education has been my life since I was a baby, and I really hope to be able to serve this city and especially our school district, two of the two largest high schools in the state. We should be really proud of what we've been able to do, and we're handling our diversity just as well as anybody I've ever seen. I'm really proud of that and want to be a part of it. I also know that Dr. Rollins has a good relationship with our city council as well as with our city planning commission. We want to continue to make that happen, and I hope to be a part of that.
All right.
If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Anyone? All right.
Thank you.
Jeff, thank you for your willingness to serve. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, Economic Development Report, and ask Scott Edmondson to come bring a report.
Thank you, Mayor Sprouse and Council. Economic Development Report for the first quarter of 2018. Just happy to report that growth is still taking place, and we're working with 6 existing manufacturers on possible expansions of either equipment or their facilities, and also working with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission to help secure possible incentive funding for them. We've had quite a bit of interest in retail growth as far as in tourism and restaurants, working with an entertainment group now, and also with several restaurants that are looking in downtown or on the west side. And as you can see on the downtown redevelopment, Bike Rack Brewing out of Bentonville announced just recently that they were coming downtown with would be their 3rd location in the region. So excited to hear that news. Highway 265 work continues on it from Randall Wobie going north up to 264, and that's actually coming up Jefferson on the west side of Jefferson Avenue, and then across some property that's owned about a 70-acre tract that's owned by the Springdale Public Facilities Board. So work continues there as they're clearing land for the new road. I want to mention the Opportunity Zones. This is a program that became available with the passing of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, and it allows governors of each state to designate certain census tracts in their state to be designated as an opportunity zone, which provides tax relief and investment incentives for individuals in those particular zones. The state of Arkansas had a total of 85 zones, or 85, they could designate 85 different census tracts to be an opportunity zone. I'm pleased to announce that Springdale received 4 of those. The only other city in the state that received as many as Springdale was Little Rock. So we're very excited about that. And the zones encompass, 3 zones encompass the area that include what's been designated by the Downtown Master Plan. So that could help spur redevelopment and investment in our downtown, and it also includes our industrial park and the majority of our largest employers. So that was exciting news that we received yesterday from the governor's office.
Let me just say, that really is big news. That was something that'll sort of, I'm not going to say it snuck in with the tax reform bill, but thankfully it was brought to our attention, and Chamber y'all have done great work in getting us that many of those zones, and
Well,
that's going to be big for us.
What kind of
Thank you.
tax incentives go with the district?
Well, it can involve reinvestment to help offset capital gains taxes, and I can get more into
Reinvestment in physical plant, employees?
Yes, sir.
and
And
what?
the Treasury Department and the IRS are still working out the final details of the regulations itself, but generally speaking, it will allow for investment of capital gains into these zones and help defer capital gains taxes, and then also provide that gains realized from those investments can be tax-free if you hold on to that investment for 10 years.
So it's a deferred investment, but then the profits or the taxes on the profits are tax-free.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can get you some more information on that. Be more than happy to do that. So it's exciting news for Springdale. So new job numbers continue to show growth in new jobs. 756 new jobs created in January, February, according to the Department of Workforce Services. Our sales tax remained strong. February showed a over 10% increase from February of 2017's receipts. Our unemployment rate's one of the lowest in the state at 2.9%. With some of our chamber initiatives, the Experience Springdale, many of you are familiar with Leadership Springdale, which is a 9-month program. This is a condensed version that took place over 3 weeks. I know several of you were involved with addressing this group. It's a group of business leaders that get a crash course in Springdale's history, how government works, and they hear from city officials, department heads. So it was well received by the people that enrolled, and we appreciate all of y'all's help on that. Under our workforce initiative, our Academy for Career Educators in Springdale, our ACES Academy, a 3-day seminar that will be held in June. Governor Hutchinson will address the group. We have 40 educators from the Springdale School District that will be attending, and registration is already full for that. Announcements, of course, Northwest Health announced last week it's partnering with the Mayo Clinic Care Network. Children's Hospital grand opening was in late March. Mercy Health continues work on their new facility out on off of Elm Springs Road. Of course, Slim Chickens opened. Azul Tequila, the restaurant out on Elm Springs Road, is nearing completion. JJ's Grill announced a location out in West Springdale, and of course then the announcement from Dairy Queen. So some good things going on. Last but not least, that Springdale's metropolitan area was ranked 5th best place to live in 2018 from U.S. News and World Report. So a lot of good news. So we appreciate your support. So if there are any questions.
I have one, Scott. In the new jobs created, in what sectors were the majority of those created, or is it kind of broad-based?
It's kind of broad-based, and the Department of Workforce Services they don't break it down specifically because some of the numbers are still, January's were final, but February's was preliminary, so we don't have those. Our manufacturers are still showing some increase, and then there's been some in retail, of course, in restaurants. Medical has shown an increase, obviously, as well. So it'll be a few months before we can get specific figures on exactly what areas, but thus far in the last year, so it's been pretty widespread. So.
Last Thursday's announcement isn't on here, Was that on purpose, or was it an oversight? Highland Oncology Group.
Well, that
Yeah.
should be on here, but Highlands
Okay,
Oncology.
that's a big
thank
deal,
you.
too.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
big deal with their new facility that's going to be on the west end of Don Tice, and so that's
Right.
my mistake for not having that on there. I apologize for that, so. All right.
I'm confused by the sales tax receipts. The first 3 months, is that right? The first 3 months had an increase over the first 3 months of 2017 of 0.5%?
Yes, sir, I believe that's correct on that.
But February is 10% over last February.
For February specifically, but there may have been some other months.
So,
There's some other
January or
months that
March must have been very low.
they may have been off some, yes, sir.
A lot. Do you have any idea why?
No, I'd have to defer to Wyman, maybe on that, so.
It could be rebates, it could be a lot of things. We were down 1 month, but the other month was up, but just slightly. That's
Yeah,
probably
so-
why the average is 0.5%.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much.
That's a lot of difference.
A lot of difference in,
All right.
one month had to be down as much as the next month was up.
Item 6, approval of minutes. Entertain a motion to approve them as presented if there are no changes.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. What's your pleasure on procedural motions?
For A and B?
Second.
Okay, motion is second for A and B. Roll call.
Evans? Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0.
All right, thank you. Wyman, are you going to do this, you want me to read this resolution? Okay, I'll go ahead and read it. Item 8, a resolution approving a reappointment to the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Springdale.
You want to mention who the commissioner, candidate for the,
I've forgotten the name.
Angela
Jacko.
I have to go
Jacko?
with
Angela Jacko.
Jack, okay. All right.
I'll move the resolution pass.
Okay.
Is she
It's a
here?
reappointment, yes.
Second.
Okay, motion is second.
Janice, is she here?
Is Angela here? No. Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Carry 7-0.
All right. Thank you. Item 9 is an appeal of Planning Commission's decision to deny conditional use at 2894 West Sunset. And Steve Zaga is here representing the property, or the applicant.
Applicant. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, Mr. City Attorney, members of the council. On April 3rd, the Planning Commission met. We asked them to approve a conditional use there at 2894 Sunset. That's the Harps main store for a cell tower behind the store. Also on the agenda that night was a request for a variance in the landscape requirement for the ordinance, but they were on the ordinance, on the agenda that night as two different items. By a vote of 5-3, the Planning Commission kind of took them up at the same time, and by a vote of 5-3, they turned down the conditional use. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, my client, Mr. Cardinal, on behalf of EchoSite, the lessee of the tower, is here to ask you to overturn that decision. Very briefly, our reasons are that we believe, first and foremost, on the substantive side of it, that the Planning Commission correctly reported, the planning staff, Ms. Christie and her staff, correctly reported to the Planning Commission that the plan submitted by my client complies with all federal, state, and most importantly, local regulations when it comes to the construction of this kind of facility. Secondly, it's our position that you have, well, it's not a position, it's a fact, about 8/10, 9/10 of the mile due east of our proposed site, which is a property that you see is kind of bounded by Sunset and Gutenson. Behind Susan's Restaurant on Sunset, there is a cell tower operated by a different carrier in pretty much exactly the same configuration that we want to build the tower behind the Harp store. to simply deny it. It's the same use unit, it's the same zoning area, it's the same. Legally, it's the same, that's our position. To deny us, but to allow that one to operate is problematic legally, I believe, and I'm hoping Mr. Cate agrees with me on that. The other two things are more procedural, but they're important. The commission did not provide us with written reasons for the denial when they denied us. That is a problem with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. They didn't provide the reasons when they voted, and they didn't provide the reasons in their written denial. With that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm open to questions, comments, and anything that Ernest or Patsy could lend to this. I'm sure happy to have them talk as well.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions for?
How tall is this tower?
It's going to be 110 plus a 10-foot lightning rod, so 120 feet altogether.
Okay, because I know there's some large power line poles that kind of, to me, resembles a cell tower, so I don't see a
And
lot of
it's,
difference in those.
Falls within the fall zone?
Yes, but that it's cited and the fall zone, as far as I know, in the technical specifications was approved. It's okay.
Okay. Patsy, you have anything you need to add?
Steve, is
Not
this
necessarily.
is it up against the building, or is it out in the parking lot?
It
or-
will be, and I didn't bring my laser
It'll
pointer.
have to be
Mike,
toward the
but
back.
it's planned to go right behind the store in what amounts to the loading area right now. Right in here? Yes, sir.
Well, that'd put the store in the fall zone, wouldn't it?
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh,
Pardon
so
me?
it can fall on a commercial building, it's no big deal.
It's okay, it
Oh,
just can't fall on
okay.
residential, and it does meet all of the requirements that we have, including the fall zone, and there are no variances for the fall zone. So, it meets all of it.
So it's sorry, Charlie, if it falls on a commercial building.
I'm telling you what the ordinance says.
I've asked you the question.
So whose request is this?
It's, Ecosite is the owner of the cell tower. They have all the necessary agreements signed with Harps for it to go with that location.
So the owner of the tower has to make the request, not the owner of the property?
Right, but they have to sign out in the application that says that they agree for it to be at that site. They have to go through FAA, they have to have FCC requirements. They've been through all of that stuff. We've looked at everything that they have. It meets all those requirements. The only request that they had was for a landscaping variance. And we had discussions about them doing landscaping along Guggenson, but that's out of the side of the area that they are actually renting, or they're actually the conditional uses for. So we can't require them to put landscaping on outside of the area that they're operating.
If it's behind a commercial building, why would you put landscaping around it?
Well, that's a good question. And
Yeah,
there's really
relevant
some-
one, I'd think.
There's really some discussions about places where they're placed. You can see them from the road, landscaping around the.
If you're dumpster diving, you can see it.
The other option is you gotta have vegetative control so it doesn't have grass and stuff growing inside, and this is all in concrete.
Yeah.
And to be clear, y'all, when the commission denied our conditional use, I withdrew the variance because I'm going to refile it if you approve this appeal tonight. But I withdrew that because there was no point to go forward with a variance on a conditional use.
This is
that was
just
not
on,
granted.
this is just on the conditional use.
This is only on conditional use.
I think Harps has made a significant investment in that property, and they're the property owners, and they see fit that as part of their business, they want to extend this lease, this ground lease. It's a property owner making a decision. They fit all the requirements. I don't see any reason why not to. I know there was concern about property values.
Harps would be the ones that would
Right.
be hurt the worst.
And I looked and tried to see if there was any devaluation of property on the one on Whitaker, and there's nothing of significance that I could see. And if the property owner is wanting to do this, I think it's something that we ought to move forward with.
Is that a motion to approve the appeal?
I'll second.
Motion to overturn.
Overturn the planning commission's decision.
Hey,
the house across Guggenson from that lot, Colby?
Commercial, I think.
That's
It was
commercial.
actually zoned commercial, and
Yeah.
it's outside the fall zone too.
That house is, that first house?
Yeah.
They use it as a residence, but I think it is a single zone.
Zone commercial.
My big issue
They've
is
asked,
it's,
those houses have asked several times, and
They couldn't get, it's either C1 or O1. It's nothing more than probably O1, because there are offices in there.
oh, in that first house?
Bottom line is, it wouldn't have been approved thus far if it violated the fall zone.
Well, it wouldn't have gotten to the
Right,
planning commission.
right, that's what
because
I'm saying.
There's no variances for that, so none of
Right.
those houses are.
We have a motion and a second. Are there further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to correct something I said, my client pointed out. It's actually 120 feet for the main part with 130 feet with the 10-foot
So,
lightning rod,
what was the vote at the planning commission?
5-3.
5-3.
is it not 4-4? I thought I saw in the minutes it was 4-4.
So did I, but I looked at the minutes too. and
Well, because
Five
just,
for
I'm
what?
I
so-
thought the same thing too.
I wasn't at the planning commission meeting. What were the negative comments? 5 that voted against it.
Primarily, Mr. Watson, they were about the variance, that it was going to be an eyesore, and folks weren't particularly thrilled with the, and they didn't feel like the plan did enough to make it aesthetically pleasing on the eye. Now, I say that, there was no, when they voted no, those folks who voted no didn't say, I'm voting no because, which is part of the reason for my appeal tonight was, I think the law requires them, when they turn down, as the Federal Telecom Act says, a personal wireless communication facility, they're required to say, if I vote against it, this is why.
Ernest, does that only apply to FCC,
Does specifically, I don't know if you remember, I think you were on the council back many years ago. We denied a cell tower and it landed in federal court.
when there was no rational reason for, no reason was stated for it? My only question is, I'd never heard of having to put the reasons in writing
Well-
because that wasn't in the past, this is the first I've ever heard of it.
As is usually the case, the federal government always places some extra requirements. In this case, when it deals with a telecommunications issue, it does make that requirement. And just so you know, if you overturn the planning commission denial of this conditional use, we would then bring a resolution back next time to consider the conditional use. This is just dealing with whether or not the appeal is overturned, denial is overturned.
So you agree that there is a requirement that if the planning commission denies it, there's a requirement that each of the planning commissioners that voted,
There has to
Minutes
be,
have to reflect
there
it.
has to be a written record of the reasons behind the denial.
I was at the meeting, and
Was
I
that
would have had,
discussed?
I would have had trouble
coming up with a reason?
coming up with the reasons.
I think
It was
that
a
Jeff's-
pretty difficult conversation to
What
follow.
does that say about your influence with the planning
Well,
commission?
that may say more about me than anybody else, but
And you have the written record. You got a verbatim record of what was said. That's the only record we have.
Well, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, just to my point, I guess to Mike's point and Jeff's, I've never heard before tonight that did the planners, I guess that's a better, and the chairman.
Yeah, and
did
do
they
we
know
have the
they
same
have to-
requirement if we denied it?
But did they know that they had to provide
No, this is
written,
denial of their action. We wouldn't have to.
written comments
What I will say
before
to
this
that is,
appeal?
I don't, how do I say this? I don't think anyone expected it to be
Turned down?
turned down.
Okay, but my point is, once it was there a time frame in which written comments must be provided to Mr. Zaga and his client?
They're supposed to know the law, I guess.
That's not, we're saying that they needed to submit written comments.
It's
along.
part of Mr. Zaga's argument
What are
for
you saying? It sounds
overturning.
like that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's exactly what I'm
Okay, I'm
hearing.
not gonna speak
I'm
for
just
you.
asking.
That's all right. Here's my understanding of the law, and, you know, you have an attorney who can disagree with me, clearly. My understanding of the law is that under the Federal Telecom Act of 1996, and in particular, a Supreme Court case that came down in 2015 called T-Mobile LLC versus the City of Roswell, Georgia, when a locality decides to turn down a cell tower, they have to say why they're doing it in writing. There was no record in writing, okay? And that's what I'm telling you, is that the procedurally, that's my problem. Substantively, my problem is that the commission turned down this tower in exactly the same use unit as the one 8/10 of a mile down the street.
But it'd been several years, so that's not,
I think it does matter Mr. Overton, because the Federal Telecom Act says it's prohibited to discriminate against carriers providing substantially the same service. And our position is if you just flatly turn down this tower, you'll be giving an advantage to a competitor of ours.
Was
But it-
development different years ago when the cell tower you continually referred to by Susan's, was development exactly as it is today? Which could be why that tower was in that location
'Cause that's-
versus this location that's being asked for at this point? That's my question.
Let me just clear up from a planning commission standpoint.
Patsy, go ahead and use the mic, please.
Well, that's a good point.
From a planning commission standpoint, it's always my responsibility to help build the record. And when we go through the staff report, we addressed all of the issues that the ordinance requires. And if there had been some reason,
Exception.
an exception, those would have been noted. And we do that every time. Every time we do one, as you have heard me say before, I believe we're building our case to go to court, and all those issues has to be there so the planning commission's decision is not arbitrary and capricious. So we addressed all of those issues. The comments that were made are what the planning commission members themselves made as part of that record. They're never required to submit something in writing saying, this is what, now they could, and sometimes we get responses from adjacent property owners in writing. Those are always read into the record, so we're creating that record. In this case, the staff report addressed all of the issues that were there, and there were no additional issues that I'm aware of that any of the planning commission members brought up that were documented in the discussion. Other
take-
than the
yeah.
discussion about the landscaping.
My take on it was that they combined
Yes.
the discussion of the conditional use with the discussion of the landscaping variance, and the negative comments that I recall were about landscaping.
So they objected to Mr. Zaga being an anti-posy planner.
Can I address what Mr. Zaga said about the written,
I'm not going to answer.
About the what?
about the written record?
Yeah, I'm confused on that.
Well, I think Steve and I think Mr. Zaga and I can have a legitimate, I
Disagreement?
don't want to say a difference of opinion, but this body is the body that takes the final administrative action on this conditional use. The federal statute requires that there be reasons placed in writing if there is a denial. My opinion is that since this body is the final administrative action taker, that's where that would come into play if you were to deny, or let me make this, if you were to uphold the planning commission's.
Ernest, wouldn't that apply only if we were bringing a resolution forward in its entirety? All we're doing is asked to pass judgment on action by the
just wanted to
planning
address
commission.
Ms.
So
Jaycox.
it'd have to come before us as a resolution first.
Because Ms. Jaycox, I think her question was, did the planning commission have to put something in writing? And my point on that is I believe this body is the be-all, end-all as far as whether it's approved or not.
I
That's
understand.
where the final record would need to be made.
My question was because of Mr. Zaga's points on why this appeal should be, the planning commission's decision should be upheld. Part of it was written comments were not provided. My question is only, if that is the law, and the planners were there that night, were they made aware that they needed each to provide written comments to comply with your reasons? That is my question.
Ms. Jaycox, the answer to that from my perspective is no, and I didn't hear anybody else say that. Again, as City Attorney Kate and Mayor Sprouse said, I was kind of caught flat-footed by that, and I'm not, that's nobody's fault but my own. I was there that night on a variance. Mr. Cardinal was there representing the CUP, totally separate agenda items. The chairman combined them and talked at length about the variance, which, again, as I said, I'll refile if the council proceeds to grant this appeal. And maybe at that point, because they are, by the way, the final authority on variances, if they say no, they say no.
That is correct on that, yes.
Yeah.
That I
I
understand.
know Mr. Reed's opinions on that.
And,
Yes,
and by the way,
very
with
much.
respect to what Ernest is saying, I don't disagree with him. That's one of the reasons I'm bringing this to you is please fix it. I think that was again, a procedural deficiency, in my opinion, at the commission. What I'm telling you, that there's a substantive reason to grant the appeal and a procedural reason as well.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anyone in the audience that needs to address this? Comments from the audience?
Mayor, I apologize for being late. Can I ask what the motion is?
Yeah, Jim, Councilman Fulfer made the motion that, that we overturn the Planning Commission's decision of denying
Right,
the
okay.
conditional use. That would, and Ernest, correct me, that would take it back to the Planning Commission, or no?
No, it would mean that a resolution would come back to the
A resolution
council.
would come back to the council in 2 weeks?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Now, the variance, if they reapply for the variance, that would have to come through planning commission. 'Cause that's a
variance is not part of
the
this.
zoning ordinance, which you all don't hear.
Okay, we have a motion and a
I
second.
have a question.
Go ahead.
Is there any difference, and maybe this is to Ernest or Patsy, I'm not sure, is there a difference in the requirements for a tower that adjoins residential property than one that's surrounded by commercial property?
Said
Only,
was.
I think the only difference is the fall zone is only relevant to to residential
Residential, that's what
properties.
she said.
Be in certain commercial zones in an A1 zone.
I understand it can only be in the commercial, but does it make any difference that it is adjoined by residential
Yes.
property?
It says a self-supporting tower antenna structure or monopole shall be set back 150% of the total height of the structure pole antenna when adjacent to the
falls
property line of any existing residential use. Note, a variance of this setback requirement shall not be granted. That's the only condition.
That's different.
Right.
Okay, because and I hate to keep harping on those houses on Guggenson, but couple of those houses have come before us several times.
But it says residential use. It doesn't matter whether it's zoned residential or not.
Okay.
But they're outside the fall zone. We've already
They
checked
are.
that.
All
Yes.
those houses are outside
All of those
the-
have been checked. It's outside the fall zone.
Okay.
You wouldn't have gotten it had they been within that fall zone, because the first thing we would have said is, no, you can't put it there. You gotta move it.
Right.
And we would have started there. Yeah, because there are no variances.
205 feet away.
Kathy, did you have something?
I was so intent on those comments, I forgot.
Sorry.
All right. Any other comment?
I just want to make sure they're clear what they're voting on.
I think I restated it once. Is everybody clear?
Was there a second?
Yep, I
Yes, there was a
second.
second. This is to overturn the Planning Commission's denial of the conditional use. All right, Denise?
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulfer,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Carries 8-0, so there'll be a resolution come back to this body for the approval of the conditional use.
Members, thank you so much. I appreciate you
Thank you.
entertaining us tonight.
Before we move forward, Ernest, could we consider the procedural part of this so that in the future, if there's another one of these issues, if written comments are procedurally important, that we follow that procedure?
Well, but my point is,
I know what your point
we
is.
always
I'm-
make a, planning commission, we always make a record. Patsy gives you a verbatim transcript, and I still
I
say,
read.
as far as vis-à-vis that Telecommunications Act, this body is the final decision-making body, and there would be written findings if we were to.
Well, if there is a procedural problem, would you please
Yes,
address it?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right. Patsy Christie, Director of Planning, Planning Commission report and recommendations. Item 10.
As Scott said, things are really busy in Springdale. You can see it from the agenda tonight. And let me tell you, next time's going to be even bigger, because there's lots of things going on. The first item is a rezoning request for 5 acres owned by Pinnacle Car Services located at 2944 North 48th Street. The request is to rezone it from Agricultural District A1 to Neighborhood Commercial District C1. Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain properties from Agricultural District A1 to Neighborhood Commercial District C1 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there further questions or discussion? Anyone in the audience need to speak to this property, this rezoning? Okay, Denise?
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Second.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans. Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a rezoning request to rezone 5 acres owned by Lifestyles Development located on the east side of Butterfield Coach Road. Their request is to rezone the property from Agricultural District A1 to Medium-Density Single-Family Residential District SF3. Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from Agricultural District A1 to Medium-Density Single-Family Residential District SF3 and declaring an emergency.
We have a motion.
Rick, your mic's not on.
I
don't
have to
think.
ask a question. Is this Lifestyles, Inc.?
No, this is a different.
So it's a different, okay.
This is
then
a
I can
development
second,
company called
Because I serve
Lifestyles.
on the other board and I
Yeah, no.
didn't want a
No,
conflict.
it's not them.
So there's a second.
Okay.
Recuse anyway.
Pardon me?
You can
I
recuse anyway.
could, I would have to do a written reason.
All right, motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Okay, Denise?
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed. Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item on the agenda has a correction. We got the wrong piece of property attached to the wrong rezoning request. So you should have a revised ordinance on the table. This is actually a request by Butterfield Development Group LLC. This is property located on Highway 412, if you can see it there. That still needs to be corrected on here, but it is the out parcel number 3 of the Butterfield Coach Retail Park, which you will see on there. That's the area right across from Neighborhood Market. The request is to rezone it from C5 to C2. The Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from Thoroughfare Commercial District C5 to General Commercial District C2 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance pass. Second.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Anyone? All right, Denise?
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a revision to a planned unit development commonly known as Magnolia Gardens. And they are requesting to make some changes in the permitted uses in the planned unit development itself. They're requesting to allow the event center for the owner to continue to use it, the existing event center for the cultural, social, and business use that has been being used for. They want to reopen the previously existing bed and breakfast. The operation will provide 9 rooms for occupancy by guests from Thursday to Monday of each week. Owner has met with the local fire department. All guest spaces in the house have activated smoke detectors collectively tied to a monitored alarm system, which is also tied to the event center, and pull stations are provided at 3 signed exits. They are asking to provide trailside services. Owner will provide daylight access to the grounds from the Razorback Greenway on a regular basis. A water station and a bike repair stand will be provided. The owner will collaborate with other businesses in the Downtown Springdale Alliance to produce pop-up events on the weekends for the enjoyment of the trail users and the general public. And they are providing summer camping between May and October. The owner has identified 2 small areas for weekend camping, 1 area for up to 5 tents. Guests will bring their own tents, and 1 area for the summer installation of 2 teepees. Tent and teepee campers will have access to restroom showers and a lobby area located in the house at 501 North Main. The camping program will be operated by an on-site manager who will live in the house at 224 West Huntsville. The manager will ensure that guests check in, are advised of and adhere to camping rules, including quiet hours after 10 p.m., and have access to and knowledge of the facilities and amenities available on-site and in the downtown area. And they will be adding additional fencing and landscaping. The owner will complete construction of a fence located along the west property line, including a gate for access as required, additional landscaping, and they provided a drawing for that to buffer adjoining properties and to buffer the street noise on the south side, with the fencing and landscaping be completed before May the 1st. Planning Commission reviewed this request for the amendment to the plan unit development and recommends that it be approved. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from planned unit development PUD to an amendment of said planned unit development PUD and declaring an emergency. And those were the items that are the changes in it.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second?
Question, Patsy, since this is a PUD, I didn't think they had to come back before us, because under the original PUD, it's all negotiated with the planning department as long as it falls under
Well,
the
it's
PUD
negotiated with us, it comes to you guys, and you set the conditions for the planned unit development.
But once it's already approved as a PUD, I didn't think it ever, because that was always my objection about a PUD initially, is that it would never come back to us.
No, it has to come back to you if it changes.
So they're changing their,
They're adding the tent sites, they're adding the.
okay, so it's since they're changing from their original PUD plan,
right.
so this revision comes back to us.
As a matter of fact, this is the second revision, because you got a second one when the
The
Kendricks made
bed
changes to it.
Bed and breakfast.
Right, and when the event center was built, and when they built their medical offices and all that. So this is the second amendment to it. And the advantage we have with the plan unit development is if we have a problem or something changes, they have to come back and change it again.
Okay, but is this the Kendricks or is this Springdale downtown?
This is Springdale Downtown LLC.
So it'd
They
have
own
to-
a portion of it, and the Kendricks own a portion of the property that is now zone PUD.
So all of the property will be a PUD?
Right.
So the Springdale downtown property is being incorporated with the revised PUD into one
Right.
PUD?
And the part that the Kendricks still own will stay with the same qualifications and
As
set standards.
originally drafted?
Under the
As was
revision
done the
of
last
their
time,
property.
as it was amended last time, because we allow them to expand the medical office,
And put
build
the
a
house in.
house and an additional structure with it. So this is the third time
So
we've
the
been back.
Kendricks own basically the property to the west.
Right.
Yes.
That
Who
fronts
owns-
onto
Who
Shiloh.
owns the house where the on-site manager would,
It is part of Springdale Downtown LLC.
it's part of the PUD?
Right, it's part of that ownership portion of it, and it's the
It's all the
management
PUD.
structure that goes with the stuff that they just outlined.
And so that's one of the conditions, is that there has to be an on-site manager living in that house?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so what if 5 years from now, the on-site manager quits and they just don't replace him?
Then they're in violation of the plan unit development. We can bring it back before the planning commission and address the issue, revoke what they've been given, or set new conditions for it.
But that's all part of...
This is contract zoning.
Planning
This is the
department.
only thing we have that is as close to contract zoning as we can ever get. That makes Ernest make a funny face, but it's the closest thing that we've got to contract zoning.
It did come with recommendation for approval?
It did come with a recommendation for approval.
Patsy, do they have a proposed rate for these tent sites and the teepees?
That's not something we get into
No, I
about
was
the
just
rate
curious,
structure.
because
No.
I know that's some of the things that I've heard. The concern is it going to be so inexpensive that there will be a lot of violations?
So inexpensive?
Inexpensive.
What I know about the group that's doing this, I doubt if that's the situation.
Was there concerns at planning? I wasn't there at that.
There were some concerns of the adjacent property owner of how it was going to be managed. Was it going to be just anybody showing up to set up a tent on that location, how do they monitor it? How do they manage it? How do they control people going in and out? I mean, that were some of the concerns that we had. That on-site manager and the control that they will have is what it's set up to make it work.
You basically check in and out just like very much like a hotel would.
Or like you do to the
Yeah.
bed and
Absolutely.
breakfast.
Or the bread and breakfast, yeah.
Right,
So is this additional parking?
no.
Well, it's listed as one of the 7 items on page 64. It says parking.
You know, they are using the existing parking that's there. They may concrete a smaller area down closer to the house if they need it for additional
But was
parking.
that a new
No, those
term?
aren't, no, those aren't new terms.
condition, the
No,
parking?
No,
There's some change to the parking?
not that I'm aware of, because they've got paved parking. And as
So
far
there's
as I
really
know,
no amendment to the PUD for the parking then?
no. The amendment is to allow the event center to stay as it is, for the bed and breakfast to be opened back up as a bed and breakfast rather than a single-family home, to add the tent sites, to open up the ability to use it for trail side services, and to have that on-site manager.
So all 6 of those that you just read are on page 64, but there's a number 7 that says parking. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that there wasn't some,
I think
Change.
it was listed just in case something has to change with parking. This is a little bit unknown on how well this is gonna work. People showing up who want to rent one of the tent sites, they can't take up all the parking for people who are there at the bed and
so
breakfast.
there's no requirement for additional parking though?
No.
They're gonna be riding bicycles.
Is there bike parking?
They will have bike parking. I think they are assuming that some of those people coming to tent will come on a bike. Yeah,
That's what it was.
yeah. And as I said at Planning Commission meeting, it's a really unique situation for downtown Springdale. There's no place else in Northwest Arkansas that you could ride a bike and spend the night in a tent. Or a teepee, as far as that's concerned.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? All right, Denise?
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer? Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes. Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer? Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed? Jaycox?
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a conditional use request for a tandem lot split at 3190 East Robinson Avenue. Planning Commission reviewed this tandem lot split and recommends approval of the conditional use. The title of the resolution reads, "A resolution approving a conditional use for Arvest Bank at 3190 East Robinson Avenue as set forth in ordinance number 4030.
Supervisor Ruth?
Adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? Okay, Denise?
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
8-0.
The next item is a request for a conditional use for a mobile vending unit to be located at the intersection, or the southeast corner of Bacchus and 71. It's where we've had a shade planted in the past. It has changed ownerships. The conditional use cannot be transferred from one owner to another. That's why it has to be, and actually it should be the northeast corner of Bacchus and 71, not the southeast.
Northwest corner.
Northwest corner.
We were wrong all the way around.
Missed it about as bad as you could miss
Yeah,
it.
okay. Totally on the wrong side, but anyway, we all knew where it was because that's where it was last year. But it does have a new owner. And the Planning Commission recommends approval of this conditional use. So the title of the resolution reads, "A resolution approving a conditional use for Russell Merrill Shave the Planet at the northwest corner of Bacchus and 71. Business as set forth in ordinance number 4030 with the following conditions. May not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. No obstruction of parking spaces required for the operation of any other use on the site. Maintain on the site a minimum of 3 parking spaces designated for their use. If the health certificate is required, display the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrian or motor vehicle traffic flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulatory signs. No vending upon a public way. Sound any device the produces a loud and raucous noise in violation of city ordinance or violate any other city ordinance in connection with the vending operation. Keep the vending sites clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of their business. All trash or debris accumulated within 20 feet of any vending stand collect and deposit into a trash container.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further comments or questions? Anyone? All right, Denise?
Overton,
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans. Reed. Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
8-0.
The next item is a conditional use request for a use unit 14, which is a residential manufactured home to be placed on an A1 district by Gerald and Barbara Williams. The Planning Commission reviewed this request. It is a large tract in an agricultural area. They have plenty of room to put this manufactured home on it to be able to meet any and all setback requirements. Planning Commission recommends approval with no additional conditions set. Title of the resolution reads, a resolution approving a conditional use for Gerald and Barbara Williams at 3231 North Mountain Road as set forth in ordinance number 4030.
Move resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for adoption. Anyone else? Okay, Denise?
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans. Reed. Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
The next item is a waiver request for sidewalks in connection with South Coast Baking Company. They have purchased the property on the north side of that access drive off of 40th Street and want to put in a parking lot at that location. There is an existing 5-foot sidewalk. Our current regulations would require that to be a 10-foot sidewalk. They're requesting to leave the sidewalk as constructed as part of the
5 foot along which street? 48th Street? Or
40th Street. It's
West
already
side,
in
west
place.
side,
It was put in with part of one of our CIP projects.
On 40th Street.
Yes, they're requesting to be allowed to leave the sidewalk as put
But
in.
we're requiring a 10-foot sidewalk now? I
On
knew that was
west-
for a trail, but
Well, it's a multi-use side path on the west side and the north side of any collector streets.
and how many other 10-foot sidewalks do we have on 40th?
We don't have any. Because it was all approved before that regulation went into place. So, Planning Commission recommends that this waiver be granted to leave the sidewalk as constructed. Title of the resolution reads, a resolution approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks set forth in ordinance number 3725 to South Coast Baking in connection with N1721, a non-large-scale development. And it would be option 1 that would be granting the waiver of the sidewalk.
Move resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion,
One.
Option 1.
One, yes.
option
She-
one. Have a motion.
Would they still have to build a sidewalk on the side street?
No.
It's a private drive.
Or it's a private drive?
So that, the requirement went in after the medical place south.
On
Uh,
the old
10-foot.
Payless shoe store.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
it was
a-
it was a remodel, and, you know, technically, they tore the building down, put one back, and they didn't have to fix it there either, no. And South Coast Baking, when they went in, got a waiver to not increase
Are
its
all our
potential.
sidewalks going to be multi-use sidewalks?
Only on the north side of a collector street or the west side is what we have set up. That's our trail connection across the center along a public street.
So we
don't want a
trail on 40th Street?
We don't want the little cones out in the middle of the street?
I'm not proposing or discussing that tonight. I'm only trying to get South Coast Baking so that they can get their parking lot built, because they have an expansion already approved. They need to move their parking so they can start their new construction, and so that's what we're talking about today. If you want to talk about that at another time, let's put it on a committee agenda, and we can
You'll
talk
get
about
an
it.
opportunity to talk about it when we do some of these bond projects, and we're building a 10-foot sidewalk on one side of them, just like we did Gene George. Yeah, on the west side.
We have a trail plan that shows how that all can connect, so when you're ready to discuss it, come see me, or we can do it at a committee meeting.
Oh, I'm sure I'll hear about it.
Mike, you're always welcome to come to the Trails Committee meetings.
Can't wait.
You're welcome to come.
We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience? Okay, Denise?
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson. Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
8-0.
Finance Committee report and recommendations, Chairman Jeff Watson. Jeff?
I was absent that night. I don't know if anyone else.
I took
Mr.
that.
Reed took it.
Yeah, Jim did it.
The first one is a resolution authorizing the execution of a standard uniform rental service agreement for the Springdale Public Works Department. Sam, you want to explain that to us?
I have before you, for your consideration, a resolution that reads a resolution authorizing the execution of a standard uniform rental service agreement for the Springdale Public Works Department. The current 60-month agreement expires on June 26th of this year. We received quotes from 4 different uniform companies. These quotes were viewed and discussed at the Finance Committee on April 16th, and it was this resolution was forwarded to the full council without a recommendation. The discussion included selecting Centus Corporation as the uniform company to enter into an agreement with for 1 year.
I will say while I was chairing that when I didn't have a recommendation, but I made the motion that we go ahead and go with Centos because they are local, they hire a lot of people, they do all their laundry and delivery from here and everything. They were a little bit higher, but there wasn't anybody, I don't think there was $1,000 difference or something.
It was
in any-
$700.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
was less than that, I think.
Yeah, it was less than that.
Between the first and the second.
And
The
so,
highest and the
from
next.
the highest to the lowest.
Highest to the lowest was about 1,000? Yeah,
But
about $1,000.
being a local company that employs so many of our citizens, and I know that this council worked with that quite a bit in recent terms of allowing local companies to be a little bit higher in bids so that we could use local companies. That's why I recommended that. I'm going to make a motion this resolution pass.
Are you saying that the other ones are not local?
The Aramark has a office here, but none of their laundry's done here. They take it all somewhere else, so they don't hire nearly as many people as Centos does. That's what I'm saying.
Let me just say, my problem with this whole deal was when, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Sam, in October, when you came to us, their number was 69,000 and some change. When we went back and decided to get quotes, bids, whatever you want to call it, their number instantly went to 67. So now if you take their 1 year number, it's equal to about 60 or 61. So they dropped approximately $9,000. If you look at their spreadsheet, and again, I could have read it wrong. If you look at their spreadsheet, we've continued to roll this contract over, and if you go all the way back to 2008, we paid them $73,000 with less garments, and I have to think their cost was more. I just can't, I know we're not talking about huge numbers, but I just can't support rolling this over and rolling it over when we're not getting, I don't think, their best price up front. I don't think loyalty is playing any part of this. And I think, and I'm as guilty as any, waiving competitive bidding, we've made a mistake for a long time. I get it if it's fire and police and it's compatibility issues, but this professional services, this is a prime example of why we bid it, I think. That's just my opinion.
For me, I think my biggest issue with the process, I've tried to do as much research as I can since last Monday. My main issue isn't, well, part of our fiduciary responsibility isn't just getting the best price, but it's also on how we get there. And I expressed in the email that I think Centos had an unfair advantage in bidding this because they were provided with the other bids of the other company, and then they were allowed to come back and give a better price. And for me, I would either feel more comfortable in doing one of two things, either in this spreadsheet that we were provided, I would rather us see us consider Cintas's bid before they received an unfair advantage in the bidding process, which they were actually in January at $13,192.14. Once they saw the bids of the other corporations, they brought theirs down to $12,272, almost another $1,000. I think it's only fair to either give the other companies another fair shot and show them Cintas bid, but that is not the bidding process that I would rather us see us make it fair across the board where no companies know what the other companies' bids are until the final result comes in.
Well, but the other companies are under Cintas.
They're under Cintas?
They're lower than Cintas.
Yes.
Right, but at the same time.
So at some point, they had to be
Cintas
able to,
lowered
they had to have
theirs.
an opportunity to get there too.
Right, what they did was they lowered it from $13,192 to $12,272. And it's not that we just take the lowest bid. I think that because we've obviously said tonight that there's a long history there, and that may have played a part into their bid, knowing that since 2008, we've paid them quite a bit of money. So it's not just that it's the lowest bid. I think part of it is just the other companies knowing, not knowing what Cintas bid was, but Cintas knowing what these other companies' bids were. I think it's only fair to take their January bid. Once they saw there was such a discrepancy, that was an opportunity for them to lower it once again.
I guess my question, Colby, is, well, then how did the other companies get below Cintas?
Well, they just put a bid in based on what we were needing from them, and they said, this is our price.
But the other companies are lower than Cintas
Right.
now.
Yeah, they just took what we needed and said, this is our price, this is what we'd like to do business. Cintas said, our price is $13,192.14. Once they saw the other bids provided to them, they said, we'll lower it to $12,272.52 in hopes to get the final bid. They only lowered after they were made aware of what the other companies' bids were. And so I think it's only fair to take their bid before they knew the other companies' bids.
So, Kobe, you're actually saying that Cintas seen all the other companies' bids.
I thought that,
If that's the case, I'm taking my,
because I thought, Sam, that you sent out proposals to every company, this is what I think, to every company, they were all the same across the board.
Well, let me
And
give you a
nobody
little-
had a price, Centos had their 13,000, whatever that price was. Okay,
give
but
you
then
the
when they
little-
had a chance to know that,
Yeah. Refresh us on the
I'll give you
process
a
that we
summary
used.
history of what took place. I came to the Finance Committee with a proposal for renewing the Centus contract, which was coming up for expiration on June 26th, I think, and offered a waiver, ordinance to waive competitive bidding and accept their proposal, which was 0.11% higher than the 5-year contract before. And at that point, some discussion took place that, we're not gonna do that. We would rather get some quotes. So at that point, I communicated back to Centos that we were not able to prevail in committee with your proposal. And they came back with an immediate, unsolicited by me, reduction of 5%. And so I took that back to committee, and still again, I was asked to get competitive, or quotes, not competitive quotes, but comparable quotes. So there was some informal discussion that took place between some companies, and in the very end, in comes a company called Clean Company. That now had 4 companies, so I sent each of those companies a blank form to fill out. They had no knowledge of what the other had discussed with me prior, nothing formally written other than a spreadsheet that I was working with Centos with. And these 4 come in, and I presented them to you at the last Finance Committee meeting. These are the bids, or informal quotes, that came in. Because these are 1-year contracts under $20,000 a year, they're not required to be sealed and opened at a certain time.
And if they're not sealed, correct me if I'm wrong, but Any
subject.
company can ask
Yeah.
to see the other anytime they want to.
Well, I'll defer to Ernest, but it seems to me like this information would fall under FOIA.
Right.
Yeah, we're using the term bidding loosely, because this isn't the technical bidding process. I don't want anyone to think that we're circumventing the state mandated bidding process because of the price. It's not required to go through that process. This is just getting quotes at the request of the committee.
So if you wanted to award this to the lowest bidder, it looks like that would go to the Clean Company. I have no experience with them. The only experience I have with any company is Centos. So the discussion took place that since we know Centos, we've had a service from them from longer than I've been here, and I've been here 16 years, then perhaps we should discuss entering into a one-year contract with them. And that's where we are at this moment.
Sir, do you have,
Yeah, I'm Justin Hurst. I'm a representative
come on up to the mic.
with Aramark Uniform Service.
Sir, before you proceed, I want to follow up with a
Sure.
comment from Colby, if you
problem.
don't mind. Colby, based on what you just said, and based on what Sam just told us, is it not possible that the other companies, because now we're asking for quotes, that they already knew what Centos's bid was? They knew what the contractual agreement, the contract they were proposing was. So they could underbid it or underquote it,
Right.
knowing they would come in lower than already published numbers from Centos.
In the emails that we were included on, it provided Cintas with the other company's bids. But as far as what was in the communication with us, there was nothing that showed that the other companies were able to see what each other company was bidding
No, that's not my point. When the contract was first presented to us as a committee,
in October. Uh-huh.
there was a dollar figure attached to that contract. At that point, it became public knowledge
Right.
what Centos's price was. Then when the committee asked for further information, that's when it came down to quotes. By then, every other company that was interested already knew what Centos's price was. So they had, at that point, in my opinion, a competitive edge to Centos.
I think one of the things Kobe's alluding to, though, is Centos told us all along it had to be a five-year deal. That's all it had to be. 1 year never came up until last week, I believe, when everybody else agreed they would do a 1-year deal. Centos has never, ever gave us the option of doing a 1-year deal, because I asked Sam that specifically. So the 5-year number is irrelevant to me, because they up it 2% twice during that 5 years. So the
But
1 year
that-
never
that-
came up.
Even when we had, if we were going with a 5-year deal, Mike, that's renewable. It's basically 5 1-year contracts, and you can get out anytime you want.
Well,
For either
you-
party.
Why,
That's what
why
it-
do it for 5 years if you can just get out anytime you want? That's crazy.
That'd be a question for them.
My heartburn is 69,000 to 60,000.
So let me, just for clarification, did we send the bids that the other companies submitted to those other companies? Whether or not it was public knowledge, did we send Aramark the bids of the other companies to make them aware of
I
it?
don't know that, Colby. My only point is, because it was in committee, press was there, it was discussed, information was easily found from any other company, what Centos's number was at that point.
Right,
And in my
that's
opinion,
fine.
that gave the other companies a competitive edge when it came down to this blank quote sheet that they already knew. Centos said this, they adjusted their prices to make sure they would probably be lower than whatever Centos's originally was, and Centos then adjusted their bid again, knowing that probably others who were going to provide quotes already knew a price that Centos had quoted us.
Well, and
Agree with that,
correct,
but the problem I had, why didn't Centos give us their best price the first time around?
That's business, Ricky. You
Yeah,
and I
but that's-
both.
that
Understand
happens to all of
But
us.
this happened several years back when we were arguing between Aramark and Centos then.
Centos still came back with a better price.
Aramark came in and just lowered it, I mean, it was a lot less. And Centos came back and lowered than them.
so a request for, well, of course, there's difference in bids and sending out proposal for a request of, you can negotiate those things, but the language that I believe was used, that we said was go back and get bids. And so if that wasn't the case, then I understand, but at the same time, even, it was bids, if I remember correctly, but even if that's the case, is it the city's stance to, even though other companies have access to that information, is it our practice to send all the other bids to one company in order to get a better bid? And I don't think we want to start doing that. I wouldn't think it'd be advantageous to us unless it's a request for some kind of proposal, which was, that wasn't the language used in that meeting. So I feel like, even though it could have been public information, which I don't know that it is in a bid, is it our practice to take the bids that we get collectively and then send them to one company and say, now would you give us one? Even though it's
Just
possible.
clarification, we got quotes.
Yes.
We went and got quotes because that's under the $20,000 threshold. That's what we're required to do. We went and got quotes. Sometimes those terms, we use those terms interchangeably, but there is a difference. We
Actually, it
got
started out
quotes.
as a 5-year contract. So it wasn't a 1 year, it didn't start out as a 1 year. It started out as a 5 year.
No, it didn't.
Right.
That was
The renewal of 5-year, I believe.
That's what I understood when I submitted the bid from Aramark, that it was a 5-year agreement, 60 months, which is standard uniform rental service agreement. That's industry standard, as stated on the.
We came
Chapter
back
9.
with a 1-year price because it was easier to compare apples to apples, and we thought that was what the committee was wanting. They wanted to see a one-year price.
Okay. The only thing I would
If I
ask,
misunderstood that, then that's on me.
if a 1-year price are, all the competition coming to a level playing field, are they going to redress everybody in brand-new clothing?
Sir, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
then?
ma'am.
Based on what I just asked earlier, were you aware, because of our meetings, our conversations since October, were you, as I presume the owner, manager,
I'm an account executive.
okay, with Aramark,
Yes, ma'am.
were you aware of Centas's price when you submitted your quote to the city?
No, ma'am.
Man, you should have checked.
Ms. Jaycox, you're assuming that things get reported properly in the morning news?
Mayor, I have 3 questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, not of you, sir.
Sure.
Maybe this is to Sam. Clean Company, do we know if they have an office in Springdale?
Not to my knowledge, they send their uniforms to Springfield. Or Joplin, yeah.
Clean Company does, or Airmark?
Clean Company, and we have Airmark representative, he can tell you directly where he sends his.
Okay.
We do have a local office that employs about 15 people. We do have our market center, as it's known, is in Springfield, Missouri.
I'm sorry, Sam, I got 2 more questions, if I can remember what they were, and now I've already forgotten. But maybe this is to the mayor. This is primarily the street department uniforms?
Yes.
It does not include police or fire?
No, this is all under Sam's
Almost-
department.
Almost all street department. Are there some other uniforms besides?
Do you contract with anyone else for other uniforms?
No, this is for uniforms and facility services for Springdale Public Works only.
And how hard, if we went with a different company, how hard would the changeover be?
Probably not difficult at all. There may be some.
Is there patches or any kind of logo or anything that would
There
be
could
involved?
some,
Is there
costs associated.
sizing requirements that everybody have to get measured again? How hard is
When
that?
somebody gains a lot of weight or loses a lot of weight,
They have to do it
the
anyway.
uniform sizes change.
I'd
And
make
they
them
have
go
to be
broke
refit.
if they were giving me
What would
uniforms.
be involved if, maybe this is a question to you, if we were to change companies, what would be?
I don't think it'd be a big deal at all, really. I mean, these companies do this all the time.
Be just like a new
Probably
employee
not this
coming in.
convoluted, but.
Be like
This
a
is,
new
this is,
employee.
we have gone since November trying to get this done, and we did take a timeout for a while where we didn't address it at all, and that's a lot of why it's taken so long. We're just kind of trying to let the dust settle, but for $1,000 difference, honestly, I'm good with whatever y'all decide to do, but I hope we decide tonight, so we can move forward.
Let's table it.
Let's
So,
wait and see how it's reported in the paper.
But we have, for $1,000 difference, we have gotten more headache over this
I
than
totally agree,
than
and
most
I'm,
things.
and I'm just going to say that Centus has served us well, might have cost us a little more over the
Maybe
years.
it's time to
There's a
vote.
new price on the table. Centus provides jobs in this community, is in this community. Aramark might have an office, but they're gonna send their products to be cleaned out of state.
Well, let me say this.
That's where Springfield is, it's in Missouri.
In my experiences in getting bids, you can.
Not a bid, Colby.
Okay, let's call it a negotiation of services and a price on it. Whatever we want to call it, is it permissible? Yes. Is it beneficial? Not necessarily, because, and here's my point, if I'm this gentleman here, or I'm one of the other managers or owners of these other companies, if I know that my competitors have received my bid in order to gain a better price, yes, we do. It's in these emails right here. It was sent to them. And my point is, I don't know that we want to be in the practice of sending other quotes, proposals, whatever we want to call it, to other businesses, because if those businesses find that out, at least in the private sector, when they find that out, they don't want to bid with you again, because they know that they may use that against you in the future to get a better price from someone else that they'd rather do business with.
Mayor, if I heard Councilman Reed correctly, he was in the process of withdrawing his motion at one point.
Well, let me just say that we have had other companies, when we were getting quotes, request the quotes we've received, and that's public information. So this is not a new circumstance. But
The motion on the table. Is there a
again,
motion on the
I
table?
just hope we come out of here with a decision. Jim, what were you going to do?
I'm staying where I'm at right now.
Okay, so the motion's still on the table. We have a second.
What's the motion?
We don't have a second. I'm sorry, we don't have a second.
Second that.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second, so we're going to deal with this motion.
Motion is to go with Centos, and my reasoning still is because they do hire a lot of our local citizens. I don't want to think that we did send them the prices. I did read the emails. I didn't see them quite that way, but that's not,
Okay.
that's my motion.
Well, the good news is, this is not a 5-year deal, it's a 1-year deal now, and they could always come back at a lower price next year.
Yep.
So just to answer your question, Jim, in an email on February 6th, 8:52 a.m., we sent this to Centos. You may recall that I was directed by the Springdale City Council members to get 2 additional quotes from uniform suppliers in order to compare their quotes to your last quote. I have attached a quote from UniFirst and from Aramark. I would invite you to examine both quotes and get back to me with any comments or questions, and then it goes on from there. So it was, unless that's an inaccurate email.
Some call that unfair, some call it getting the best price. So I don't know, but anyway,
One thing about it, we went from October to now, and it's got cheaper every day.
that's
So
right.
we're
But
doing something right.
we're gonna need uniforms pretty soon.
They're getting cheaper.
We're gonna need uniforms pretty soon, so hopefully we can get a decision. We've got a motion and a second for Centos. Is there any other comment before we vote on this motion?
I have a comment. Does the best price always make the best product or the best service?
No, and actually, the motion is not for the best price.
Right. But continuing with somebody and continuing with the same service just because you're familiar with that, does that mean without entering new and providing the best for the taxpayers and things like that, does that say that you're going to get the best service because that's what you know?
Sir, in my opinion, my vote will be my way, because Centos is here. They provide jobs. What you just told us is you're going to send the uniforms from Public Works out of state to be cleaned.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Mayor,
those are reasons,
if we
those are
don't
my
vote, I'm
reasons.
gonna have to take a nap, so let's do something.
I'm just letting all the comments get out of the
I
way.
want to keep the money here locally, too.
Okay. And the 15 employees that we have locally?
They can.
Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure of that.
They do.
All right,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think we're gonna vote. Go ahead, Denise.
Evans? Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
No.
Watson?
No.
Overton?
No,
Wolfer?
No.
Lawson?
No, ma'am.
Fails by a vote of 5 to 3.
Okay,
Can I make another motion?
you may. I wish somebody would.
I'd like to make a motion to move forward Airmark on a 1-year deal for recommendation for approval.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments, anyone?
I apologize. I have one more question.
Okay,
What is the year? When would this go into effect and
When would the contract start, Sam?
It ends in July.
When does it end?
June 26th?
June 20.
Yeah, it was, the 26th of June.
so that would be the same thing for another year with
It was-
whoever, it'd be June to June,
Yeah, so it's expiring, so to speak,
in
on
June.
the
Okay.
26th.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, Denise?
Reed,
Because I want Public Works to get uniforms, yes.
Jaycox,
I would happen to agree with Jim, yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
I can count this time. Passes 8-0.
Okay. All right.
Finished.
Glad to have that done. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
The next one is a resolution authorizing the change of staffing in the Springdale Police Department, and the committee recommended approval. Chief, you want to tell us what we're doing here?
All right.
Shiloh Schools contacted us and requested that we supply an SRO on their campus. We had conversations with them. We've supplied them with all of the agreements we have with Springdale Public Schools, and they asked me to bring this to you with the same agreement where they would pay for 10 months of the year, full benefits and salary.
You might explain what an SRO is?
A school resource officer, they do their 40-hour week on campus.
Read the resolution already. I move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment or discussion? Anyone? Okay, roll call.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next resolution is amending the 2018 budget for the Springdale Fire Department, and the committee recommended approval. Chief, I'll let you explain this.
Mr. Mayor, council, thanks. Basically what this is we're trying to replace our area raise, which is part of our hazmat team. It's utilized regionally because we have the interlocal agreements with both Benton and Washington counties. It needs to be the same, and that's why we're asking for that one from Northern to a total of $57,000. We're also looking at adding some of our rescue dummies to each station so that we can train a little bit more efficiently. And this is all coming out of Act 833 money, which we already have set aside. It's reserve funds, so.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Further comments or questions? Anyone? All right, Denise.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you all.
Next one is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with Emery Sapp and Sons Incorporated for the construction of Phase 1 of Dean's Trail. Committee recommended approval. I'm going to go ahead and move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
And the final resolution for the Finance Committee is authorizing the execution of a contract amendment for professional services. Committee recommended approval. I move the resolution pass.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Denise?
Overton.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, item 12, Health, Sanitation, Property Maintenance Committee reports and recommendations. Chairman Jim Reed. Jim, we'll stay with you.
The first one, an ordinance ordering the raising, demolition, and removal of certain residential structure within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 215 West Maple Avenue, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. This item's been before several times. It was tabled last time from February 27th meeting. So, Tom, where are we at?
Okay, for an update today, I did have a gentleman come into the office and pulled a demolition permit for the 3 smaller buildings that are at the it's the southeast corner, and they're gonna start hopefully within 10 days and be done within 30. And that was the Hanson Design and Construction Group that pulled that permit today. So,
I've been by there, and they are making progress, and they're gonna do this. With that being said, I'd like to see us not have them come back every month or two, give them a little longer, since they are making a move.
I understand, but the point of that was because we had asked several times.
Yes, I understand.
And promises were made and nothing was happening. So as long as there
I'm not
seems to
sure
be
about that,
timeframes,
but-
we seem to be moving forward on this property.
Well,
It makes me a little
That's-
nervous that they're pulling the permits on the day they come to council.
well,
To that point.
Too.
you know, but I'm talking like a 3-month, I'm not talking a year term.
Well, this has been on the radar screen for how many years, Tom?
about 18 months. I started it about 18 months ago, and then I actually kind of put it on hold because they wanted to go through the Historical Preservation Society, so I kind of suspended it for a while.
Remind us when the activity started on, about 60 days ago, 90 days ago?
Oh, as far as our present deal,
They had to
it
go,
was just before, it was in December, I believe we started this. It was, I brought it to you guys in December.
and Tom, I think one of the hangups was they had to get clear title, did they not, before they could
Yeah,
actually proceed?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
And they got clear title, so they've been, since then, I know they've cleaned it up, put up fencing, and
Correct.
at least now they've got a demolition permit to remove those outbuildings, and once they get the add-ons removed from that historical structure, I think it could be a significant addition to the city.
This same company, I mean, I've never dealt with them as far as for demolition because they are, I guess, the historical type people who do demolition. So this first thing is just tear down and it's gone. The guy did it, in part to me that he was in the process of bidding for the demolition of the house and the garage to take off the pieces they're not gonna need. So he sounded like he's got a good plan. He did say that they were, moving forward, so.
How do y'all want to proceed?
I agree with Rick a little bit. I'd hate to see them come back every month. I'd go every other month. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, they've done everything they said they're gonna do since they've began.
Yeah, I would say they have. I mean, they've been here, they're here tonight.
I'd like to see us move it 60 days at least.
Is that your motion to table it for
I'll
60
make a
days?
motion to table it for 60 days.
I'll second that.
Okay. If anything, Tom, you see anything or that the council needs to know about, you can bring it to committee or bring it to council that off month.
I will do that,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Got a motion and a second?
Yes.
Go.
Fulfer,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans. Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Carries 8-0, table to June 26th.
Okay, the next one's an ordinance ordering the raising and demolition and removal of certain residential structure within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 804 North Virginia, declare an emergency and for other purposes. Committee recommends approval. I'm gonna go ahead and move this ordinance be passed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anybody need to speak to this property?
Can you give us a little history?
Again, some history. I've been working on this property, I hate to say it, since 2011. Had lots of issues getting ownership of it. I did take some fresh pictures today. They're in color, just 7 of them, so you wouldn't be too bored with it, but you can see how it looks as of today. And I did pull the property records as of today, and the person who I've last notified and had returned mail on is showing to be the owner. And I don't believe that anyone is here to represent this property tonight.
Did they get your mail?
Yes, sir.
Who is it?
Their last name is Jordan. The address that I had on here goes to 804 Virginia, which that mail comes back.
That's the address?
Yes, sir. Then I sent it to a Rogers address, which was forwarded to a Enterprise, Alabama, which they signed for and came back to. So,
You've not heard from anybody?
I've not spoken with them at all. I know that Cindy has sent her letters and she's received, certified mail back that they've got the information, so. This property even today, we'll be mowing that yard. I mean, Ron unfortunately is gonna inherit that one as too, and I know that we've mowed it before, so you're gonna be doing that pretty quick.
So they obviously don't care about their property.
Got a motion and a second. Denise?
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Evans.
Ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
Item 13, Police and Fire Committee reports recommendations. Chairman Rick Culver. Rick?
Mayor, I was gone that night, so I'm not sure who took that.
I took that in the absence of anything.
Mike did, didn't you?
Colby did. We made
Technology
Colby
committee.
because he
Yeah,
doesn't,
Colby did it.
technology never
Colby
has
did it.
anything.
In the absence of any technology ordinance, I took this one for Chairman Rick Culver, and we had an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for the purchase of training equipment. The committee forwarded to the council with recommended approval, and I think this was to purchase a force simulator. If the chief wants to speak towards that.
Where'd he pass it?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion, and a second. Chief's here if you have any more questions about that. Anyone?
Tell us what it is.
What we're asking is we're asking to purchase a range simulator. It's basically a shoot, don't shoot simulator, but it also has a lot of scenarios for de-escalation, for, you can use it, you can simulate using a baton, pepper spray.
Great, thank you.
And this is 31,000 from the general fund?
No, it's in our budget.
What's already in the budget?
Yes, we're just asking to waive the bidding because I don't know how to write specs to buy this. And if we purchase this one, the State Police Academy has the same system, but they have the upper model. It costs a lot more, and they'll allow us to do customized scenarios. We can videotape our local buildings, and they can do our scenarios for us.
There's only one source that provides the Milo system.
Correct, yes.
Okay, good. All right, Denise?
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Second.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
Second item at that committee on April the 16th was an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for the purchase of a hazardous material detection kit. The committee recommended this for approval.
Go ahead and move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Chief, why don't you come on up and tell everybody what that is? I know Jimmy was there at the committee.
Yeah, actually, I kind of explained it before. This is so that we can be in conjunction with our neighbors on the mutual aid. The area arrays are things that we can set out and do remote monitoring and detection. And this plays in with all the other neighbors as well, including Fayetteville, Rogers, Bentonville.
That's coming out of
Yes,
833 money?
Act 833 money, sir.
It's also a single source. There's
It is.
All right. Okay, Denise?
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, item 15. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a charitable donation agreement and authorizing the purchase of property located at 509 East Allen Avenue.
I think you
Skipped
skipped.
one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one?
Dyslexic, Mayor. Switch
All right,
back up.
sorry. Oh, yeah, this is an important one, too. I'll go ahead and read this, Wyman. This is a resolution authorizing the payment for survey work for the replacement of Pump Station Road Bridge. This is we have an opportunity to continue to move this bridge replacement forward while the Highway Department, while RDOT waits for the federal funds to come in. We can move forward and pay for the surveying, and probably we're going to be coming back to you at another time to pay for the design and maybe even start the construction before the federal money comes in. But when it does come in, then we will be reimbursed our 80%. Those are 80-20 matches, so we'll be out the 20%. But But anyway, we have an opportunity we didn't know we were gonna have, and that's to go ahead and move forward with this, with the design and hopefully the construction of this bridge before the federal money comes back in for reimbursement.
Resolution pass.
Second. I'm sure our residents will appreciate this.
Yeah.
I believe part of the delay on that was the hurricanes from FEMA. They had the 2 hurricanes, and I know a lot of people have asked about when is that bridge going to be done. And this is a good opportunity for us to go ahead and move forward instead of waiting on FEMA.
Right. Well, and actually, this particular project is other federal money. But it's still, there was still a big wait before the reimbursement comes. So it'll be good we can move forward on it. Denise?
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans. Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Carries 8-0. Now you can read that.
All right, can I do 15 now? Resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a charitable donation agreement and authorizing the purchase of property located at 509 East Allen Avenue and 308 Park Street, Springdale, Arkansas. This is a portion of property currently owned by the Jones Trust that is surrounded by Luther George Park on the north, west, and south, and have a great opportunity here. The George family would like to donate the funds for us to be able to purchase the property from the Jones Trust. And $300,000, it's all in your, and basically the George family will donate to the city $300,000 worth of stock, and we will turn around and we will buy the property from the Jones Trust.
Move resolution be adopted.
Second.
Second.
Great opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful gift to the city.
Yes.
Generous.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Denise?
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
I'm going to recuse on this one.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Carries 7-0, 1 recusal.
Okay, thank you. Item 16 is a resolution expressing the willingness of the city of Springdale to utilize federal aid transportation alternative program funds. This would be for Patsy, correct me if I'm wrong, phase 2 of the Dean's Trail. This would be for design. And this was money that we didn't know for sure we were going to have an opportunity to apply for. And now we do. The deadline to apply is May 1st, and we need to get that going. Basically, we would be, this resolution says that we would be willing to pay the 20%, the $125,000 match when the time comes, correct?
Maximum grant amount is $500,000, going to last for 500. We don't know how much of that we get, but it's a 80-20.
Okay,
Resolution pass.
all right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Denise?
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans. Reed. Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you. Comments from department heads?
Hello, everybody. Okay, got a few things here. On Monday, the IBLA Foundation, which is an international, basically do an international competition every year, and the 2017 winners will be performing, it will be a classical music performance, next Monday, April 30th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Arts Center of the Ozarks. That is a free performance. It's free and open to the public. So for those of you who choose not to attend our awesome committee meeting next Monday, you have another opportunity to have some fun. Next thing is that, just a reminder that we will be opening comments on the animal shelter starting May 3rd. So they're not open yet, but we will start taking comments on May 3rd, and that comment period will run until May 24th. And the meeting, the public input meeting, will be May 10th. And lastly,
Time on that?
yeah,
Did we set a
the time will be 5 to 7 p.m. in this room on May 10th.
You can come and go as you please, 5 to 7.
Yeah, no formal presentation. So we'll have exhibits up, and we'll have the building designers here and city staff here to answer questions and take comments, but there will be no formal presentation, so you can come anytime from 5 to 7. And then at the very end of this meeting today, our youth council students will be graduating, so I hope everybody stays behind to show your support for them. Thank you.
They have stayed through a lot already, so we should sure stay to watch them. Thank you, Melissa. Any other department heads? Council members? City attorney?
No, sir.
I have nothing. Melissa, let's
Motion to adjourn.
let's do the, well, we'll do the youth
Oh, I'm
graduation
sorry, I thought
first.
that was, I didn't think it was
We'll
inclusive.
do that as part of our
inclusive.
meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna say a few words and just kind of let everybody know. I want to brag on these awesome students who are graduating today and talk a little bit about the program, so people at home or anybody in the audience who's not fully aware of what this program entails can understand what everybody has accomplished over the past 8 months. So I want to give a quick recap of everything they've done. In addition to their monthly meetings and the 2 optional tours, they each had to job shadow a government department, volunteer with a government department or local nonprofit, receive monthly mentoring from city official, and complete a program evaluation. They all did that individually. As a group, they had to plan and execute an event and present to city council on an issue of their choosing. This group chose food insecurity in our area. They had their event this past Saturday downtown. It was a fun run to receive food donations for the benefit of the House of Hope Rescue Mission. It was incredibly successful. They raised more than $100 in cash donations and exceeded their food donation goal by receiving more than 250 pounds of donated non-perishable items. And all of that went straight to the House of Hope. We don't have the final amount yet. We should be getting that later this week from the House of Hope. So, first off, on behalf of the City of Springdale, I would like to thank these young men and women for their excellent work and for their dedication and commitment to the program and our community. I also want to thank the council and our taxpayers for funding this program. And a special thanks to Mayor Sprouse, council members Kathy Jaycox, Jim Reed, Rick Evans, Colby Fulfer, Rick Culver, Mike Lawson, City Attorney Ernest Cate, and Judge Jeff Harper, who all volunteered as mentors this past year. And as mentors, they took an hour a month to meet with 2 students, an hour each for each student. I also want to thank the Committee for Civic Engagement and Inclusion, who helped me put together this program and volunteered their time throughout the year to support the students and their program. Every department in the City of Springdale and multiple outside organizations and government agencies worked with us to educate these students on government and community issues and opportunities in our area. I also want to give a special shout out to our Youth Council officers, Nicole Dominguez, who's the president, Vice President Georgia Milham, Clerk Megan Bowen, and Treasurer Courtney Thompson, who all took on additional responsibilities above and beyond the basic requirements, and they did a fantastic job. This was a tough program. It was not, it definitely was not designed to be easy, and it wasn't. And these students rose to the challenge, and we should all be very, very proud of what they've accomplished. So this is an annual program. So if anybody watching at home or anybody in this room who knows any high school student who will be a sophomore, junior, or senior this fall, I encourage you to join us for an information session on Thursday from 5:30 to 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. And the session is for anybody who wants to learn more about the program. We'll be kicking off the class of 2019 this September, and we'll start taking applications on May 1st. So without further ado, I'm going to call the names of the students. Please save your applause for the end so we can kind of get through everybody, but feel free to take all of the pictures that you want. So I'm going to go grab their diplomas. All right, as I call your name, please just walk up to the front here and stand. Ty Keene. Is it Keene or Kinney? It's Kinney. I've been calling you Keene in my head for the past 8 months. There you go. Thank you. John Morrison. Thank you. Megan Bowen. Thank you. Courtney Thompson. Thank you. Michelle Clarence. you. Nicole Dominguez? Thank you. Dominic Darwoodker? Thank you. Claire Friedman? Thank you. Georgia Milhelm? Thank you. Haley Currents? Thank you. And Mac Walsh? All right. I present you Youth Council Class of 2018. We have two more young ladies who couldn't be with us here tonight, but they're also graduating, Isabel Shackelford and Avery Proud. All right, so can I have all of the graduates and families meet me outside to get your graduation gifts?
Great. Thank you, Melissa, for all your hard work, and thank each
Thank
of you
you.
for your
Oh, my goodness.
for your work. That's exciting. Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Standing up.
All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.